So we pretty much are going over just a few things as quickly as I can here. I try to make these episodes pretty short. So we have the new moon um, on April 27th. It was nothing really funny. Sorry guys for doing that, but I just kind of thought about me recording and making sure that the record button is on. Yeah, this is the fourth episode to say, other than the fact that, I just kind of wanted to just go over a lot of basics for you guys just that are following me, and the information that I'm providing, which is a lot. But, I wanted to basically make this a thing to where a lot of people can learn simple things. So, for example, as I've mentioned already in the past, is once we have a new moon, this is pretty much when the sun goes into a new sign and the moon meets up with it. So this is going to be happening at 7 degrees of Taurus. I recorded this in advance, but there will be several things I'm sure that happens in the real world that you all will eventually know about. We're just kind of going over some personal things and some new things. For example, in my life, something new that will be happening is I will be graduating college. Congrats to me. It was a long time journey, but I started probably 2020 for sure. And then, of course, we are in year 2025. Um, the whole process was definitely a long term commitment, but it is something important that I wanted to do for myself because I just felt it was a need and moment for me to just basically grow. So, of course, I just look forward to continuing a way of just being a greater person. So, getting back to astrology, here we have the new moon and Taurus. So this sign is actually going to square, which is another term to know about in astrology. It's going to square Pluto, Aquarius, and Mars, which was spending a long time in the sign of Cancer, and Leo. With Mars newly being in Leo, just 4 degrees, and Pluto being 3 degrees. The Sun and the Moon will be at 7 degrees Taurus. So basically, within 5 degrees of a square can be pretty important for your own chart or the chart on the world stage, and that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at a chart that's basically going over transit. So for me, this means a type of direction has been made. It doesn't mean the direction is going to be liked by everyone, but it does mean that instead of kind of being at a crossroads of so many decisions, a certain decision will be made. That could be a great thing. It could be a not so great thing. It just always depends. But in my opinion, things are gonna just have to move eventually because that's just how life is. We have all type of movements happening, and we also want a good amount of information that can be collectively thought of and decided. Something very significant in a chart like this that you can look at is going to be the planet Neptune, which is just kind of Aries, so it's at 0 degrees. Eventually, it will move again over to the 1 degree part. Something else that you will notice about during this transit, if you were to look at the chart, which again you can find on Cafe Astrology, sorry, that's online, and AstroSeek is online. Both of these are great websites that I use to go over transits and as well as be able to download birth charts, which is free to do. So let's see here. The full moon is something that's going to happen before this new moon, which will be on April 17th, and it's going to happen in Libra. I just kind of wanted to mention that because there's a lot of things that like I said, that could happen before this new moon. In the real world, something that we do know happening right now is our president pretty much let new plan out called these tariffs, and it changed our stock market to a point to where the stock market went down to so many points. And when it goes down so many points, people lose all the money. And if we go back to the sign of Taurus, Taurus deals with personal finances, personal at a big level finances. It could deal with comfort, beauty in a sense, just a lot of status quo. It's an earth sign, so it's very down to earth and it goes with what it goes with, It's not necessarily like another earth sign such as Capricorn, which probably is making certain decisions a little bit more, or you're willing to really not just make a movement, but also a faster decision than probably a sign of Taurus, which is usually comfortable because it's fixed. It's fixed on a decision, fixed on an idea. So that's a difference that could be noticeable because we had a lot of planets in the sign of Pisces. which was a lot. And that's a lot of planets that were near Neptune, which will still be important because by the 7th of April, we will have the planet of Mercury go direct, and it will actually end up being in the sign of Aries on the 16th. So that is the day before the full moon in Libra. And again, like I said, a decision is likely to be made, whatever that may be. We also have the sign of Venus, which is exalted in the sign of Pisces. Exalted means it works better and it performs better in whatever sign that the planet is known to be exalted in. It will go direct on the 12th. So I would say if you're making some sort of decisions, probably by the 12th, and of course going to the month of the 16th, or hey, maybe by the full moon. It's probably a great idea to make those decisions, I guess, by those times. And I guess you can do them around them or after them, whatever makes sense to you. Because, like I said, decisions are a little bit more clearer to make. Let's see here. So we also have the sun that will enter Aries probably, let's say, towards the end of this month, which we're still in March. Because that's why I'm doing the recording. Sorry, I had to like think about the time. With the recording being so early, it just kind of throws off some of the things that I'm mentioning to you guys. But we all know the squares already, which is probably very important to know about in your own chart. Again, a square is in between a certain amount of degrees, which is about 5. So, like I said, I mentioned the degree of 3, degree of 7, and degree of 4. Talk about math here, and that is all within 5 degrees. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, get it. So also something important to know about squares is the sign itself has to be kind of shown off the same. For example, fixed air, Aquarius, fixed earth, Taurus, and fixed fire, Leo. If you are any of those signs, it could be pretty important to you if you're looking over a transit just to make note of. Another planet that's probably very important for people to know about is the planet of Jupiter. It's at 20 degrees of Gemini. So we are moving along, and I would say in a matter of maybe about a month or so, the planet will actually move into the sign of Cancer, a water sign. So that can highlight a few different things, but we have so many planets that's already moving towards a fire sign, which is Aries. It's pretty wild there at 0 degree mark of Aries because there's just so much information that is passed through. However you decide to use it, it will be useful. There's just no sort of other way to determine that by a matter of me just saying it because it is what it is because it'll be done or it'll be thought of being done. That's in my life and other people's lives, the world at large. So, also during this new moon, you have the planet of Uranus, which is at the end of Taurus. This planet of Uranus hasn't necessarily liked being in the sign of Taurus because Taurus is so status quo, as I mentioned, maybe a bit of the same old, whatever it's comfortable with. But the sign of Uranus is very kind of uncontained. It rules the sign of Aquarius, or according to information that I've studied, and that's the air, so they call it the sky god. So it's a little bit more freer, even though it's a fixed sign air, but it's fixed in a way to where it can just be not so held down and so down to earth. So once that sign moves into the sign of Gemini, I'm not really sure what to think, honestly, because it's just so much room and opportunity for that sign to kind of have a little bit more decisions to juggle, which could play out positively in a lot of things, or it could not be so positive. But with Pluto being in Aquarius, I just don't know. I think that could be amazing to consider in your own life as any other transit could be, but this is like at a bigger scale, maybe a little long term in a person's life. So that would happen sometime in May as well, just as, like I said, Jupiter will move into Cancer where it's exalted in as well. Sometime in May, we'll just have some more big things to consider and think about. But right now, we are still in April, so there's just a point of direction to look forward to. Again, I try to make these podcastings and audio tapes pretty short and kind of just on the matter of following certain dates and just certain themes that I may be thinking of as it's not necessarily supposed to be about me, but thinking of in the sense of things that I've noticed in the real world. For example, Let's see here. Being that Mars just finally left Cancer, where it just doesn't necessarily work the best in, there's just a little more of the show me or I am powerful. And when I say those words, I mean those words as an expression. For example, this sign of Aries, it's a fire sign. So there's a lot of I am or me or I matter or my decision is more important. Going against a sign of Leo, which is heartful, sunful in a way. Being at this fixed fire, it just makes a little bit more sense that so much more things could get going in a great way. So we'll have that going on. The power of the people is also very important to notice as well, with the sign of Pluto being in Aquarius. Any type of power, power of voice, power of people, which I think is so important today. Even though there's a lot of people that feel that certain things aren't right or should be going, it's always a matter of hey, does this feel good for me? Does this feel good for others? Which a lot of people need these days. They need different ways of expressing themselves or different ways of expressing working together. So those will be very important things to note. Something else that I just think is so interesting to note with the Neptune 0 degrees of Aries and the Pluto Aquarius is, I don't know, I think of aliens or something deep in space. I made notes about this, but I wrote basically for some reason I think of aliens for the placement of Pluto and Neptune being at degrees that they are, or just being aware of something from deep space that we could be told, or it just, brings itself into some sort of manifestation somehow. And I really think it's possible that some of this stuff could be good, even though they kind of consider Pluto sometimes often a malefic or not so greatly expressed bad planet. No, I just think we're in new time, so maybe bad isn't also necessarily that bad because we live in life where there is good and bad, and all of it has to be considered. So yeah, fourth episode in, I am going to be back. Hopefully, just like I said, I could keep going over some of these basic things for anyone to just kind of jump into and learn from. I thank you guys so much for listening to me. If you made it this far, and definitely want to keep collaborating and just bringing new energy, new vibes, new things for people to hear. There are dozens of information and podcasts, videos, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you want to go about astrology, and I just want to bring my spin on it, on things that I've learned and been studying for, I don't know, the past maybe 7 years or so. I've been studying this, a lot of self-taught. I didn't necessarily go to a teacher, but of course I've learned from things that are just online and kind of come natural to me. Sometimes I do also work with people. So again, you can just go to my Instagram page, which is what's in today, so all one word, and we can kind of go from there if you want to connect on your own chart. Yeah, that will be all for now. Until next time. Thank you.